piece it together. They ask why. Every hidden corner, every alibi. They risk it all, they take the fall. For the truth that will stand tall.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to my live stream. I took last week off from filming and going on my studio. So thank you for being patient. I didn't even look at comments or anything like that, but I'm back today. I'll be doing at least 2 videos this week. The live today, and then on Friday I won't be able to do a live at 3 because I'm going to be doing an interview with a whistleblower. So I might get a recorded video out before then, hopefully. But in today's video, I'm going to be, I guess, bringing forth some connections that I've been making between a lot of different aspects, combining information that I've come across through my research with the fires and disasters, even to the war that we see ourselves in right now. And more, I'll be looking at like very ancient, like biblical text back to the Old Testament, and even bringing in comments and more, I guess, modern phenomena that we're seeing, and try to, I guess, make a case that what we're seeing today, what we've seen in the past, what we consider supernatural, or I guess things that we have not been able to explain, try to like explain it now, because I think we're at a point where we have understood a lot more about science, about history, about the biblical text. We're seeing some signs of the end times right now. I don't believe we're at the end times, but we're seeing a lot of things move very quickly, and a lot of it is hard to believe for sure. But I'm going to try to make sense of it and bring examples of things that are supernatural from the past, from even like 100 years ago up until today. And these are clips and pieces of information. Most of them are things that I've come across since the war started. So I think the last time I made content, the war had not started, but there's been a lot of very good interviews. People have been providing some very valuable information that has given me a level of insight. And I've been, I'm hoping that I can, I guess, highlight things that other creators have not, or topics and connections that other creators either have not made or they haven't expressed it yet. On this channel, I try to discuss things that haven't been discussed elsewhere. I'm trying not to rehash, what other people have done and just comment on that. I try to bring forth original thoughts, original theories, and original research. So if you're newer here, my channel first took off because I started covering the fires in Maui. And then from then on, I continued to follow fires, and it started to include storms, hurricanes, tornadoes, earthquakes. I even started to look into volcanoes and solar activity. So I've been able to kind of get a bigger grasp of the situation that our planet finds itself in, and it is changing. And I'm going to try to tie it into, what we're seeing politically, scientifically, and try to put it in the, try to give it a different perspective, I guess. That's what I'm going to try to do in this live. I'll read some comments if you want to say where you're watching from. I'll give a few shout outs, and then I'll try to come back to the comments in the middle, and then I'll answer questions and respond to comments at the end. So, oh yeah, let's get me to 60 subs. I did break 60 subs a number of times, and yeah, this last week I think I lost like 80 or something. I mean, I think a lot of it is because I wasn't on, I wasn't working, I wasn't making content. But my channel in the past couple months has experienced a lot of suppression, and just it's been really discouraging. But I'm going to try to continue as long as I can. Hi, Laura, and hi, Carl. Okay, San Diego, Kimberly from San Diego, Ottawa, Canada, Southern Arizona, Olympia, Washington. YouTube is shady. Yeah. For those of us who, continue telling the truth, it is a very upstream battle. Well, you finally made a live. I'm glad you have. So if you haven't heard my previous announcements, going forward, I'm trying to do a schedule. So Monday and Friday at 3, I plan to go live in case unless I have another, interview or another launch. I'll try to keep that schedule consistent in case you want to plan for it. And hopefully I can stay with that, but I'm really trying to give advance notice as far as my new content and when my lives are going to be happening. Okay, Big Island, Florida, Honolulu, Missouri, and you finally got a notification, Laura. I'm glad. So Alaska. Okay, so I'll come back to questions and comments if you want to just put them in the chat, and then Shane will try to keep track of them, and I'll get back to them a little later. Okay, we're Long Island, New York, home of high taxes and broken infrastructure. Wasilla, Alaska. Okay, right. So I'll get started. Shane will timestamp. Oh, I don't have the timestamp, but yeah, you got timestamp. Okay. So I came across a lot of really insightful interviews this last week. I did keep up with the news, and, I really try to stay away from the AI generated, creators that we're seeing. And Professor Zhang is one that I've been following very closely, and I'll be playing his clip very shortly. And it's really allowed me to try to see things. Like, I feel like, I'm on a journey, right? I'm getting closer to the truth, or getting closer to understanding like what's really going on. And I feel like Dr. Zhang is always like 2 steps ahead. And so I kind of use his commentary as a guide. And I feel like he's gotten there before I have. But this clip, he did an interview on Dialogue Works with Nima. And this was part of what inspired me to put this presentation together. And he's talking about the conflict with Iran.
But the world is heading towards a new place, a brave new world. We've never seen it before. It'll be complete chaos. And quite honestly, the goal is to kill as many people as possible, because the world can't sustain 8 billion people. So you're trying to create as many conflicts as possible to reduce the population, so that the population will be easier to govern, to create compliance. So again, I don't want to say too much, because I don't want to come across as conspiratorial or deranged or insane. But If you want to survive what's coming, you have to mentally prepare yourself. You have to tell yourself that maybe what I believe of the world is wrong. Maybe BRICS doesn't matter. Maybe China doesn't matter. Maybe it's all just a delusion. Maybe it's all these lies that the media has been feeding us in order to make us not understand what's really going on. Okay, what's really going on is not a financial war. What's really going on is not a material war, a military war. What's going on is a spiritual war. All right, that's what's really going on.
So I'm going to be discussing the spiritual war that is going on, that has been going on, and I've been touching on this topic pretty heavily for the past like 6 months. One example I'm going to use to illustrate this is the building of the third temple. So I don't know exactly when this came out, but Israel started to talk about the building of the third temple. And what they mean by the third temple is the original Solomon's temple. The what is it? The founding rock? I mean, it's the rock. There's a rock there.
The dome on the rock.
The dome of the rock?
The dome of the rock, yeah.
Okay, so there's a rock that is very ancient, used to be the highest point in Jerusalem. This is the spot where King Solomon built the original temple. Now, Solomon was the king, son of King David. If you go up the lineage, he's a descendant of Abraham, also descendant of Jacob. I did research into the lineage, but anyways, way up there is Abraham, and Solomon is the builder of the first temple. Now, I'll put some pictures of what is there now. So a lot has gone on in this area where this temple was built. Right now, the Al-Aqsa Mosque is there, so the Dome of the Rock. And so that is one of the holiest sites of Islam. But this area has gone through a lot. So, I mean, how much do I want to go into this? Okay, so that's a close-up of the temple. I mean, the dome and the mosque. And then, was there one with the, like, what's there now? Okay. And then this is what they want to build.
Oh,
never mind. Yeah, I think this is what they want to build going forward, right? This is the rendition of the future third temple. Is that right?
yeah, this is like a model of what it would look like.
Okay, and I think this is illustration of King Solomon's temple, what it looked like at its glory, at its height. Okay, so King Solomon's temple was first destroyed by the Babylonians when they sacked Jerusalem. King Nebuchadnezzar destroyed the temple and enslaved the Israelites, and then it was rebuilt, and then it was again destroyed by the Romans, the famous sack of Jerusalem. And if you go to Rome, you'll see art of this very historic event. I know I've seen when I went to Rome, I saw the arch with the sack of Jerusalem. And there has been an attempt to build a third temple a very long time ago. And Tucker did a monologue on the temple and the attempts to build the third temple. And I didn't know a lot of these details. And I found them very interesting. And I think when you hear this, you'll know why. So this is what he had to say.
Well, let's read the account of the only attempt ever made at rebuilding the third temple. And this comes from a personal friend of Julian the Apostate's who wrote it contemporaneously. And we still have it, amazingly, all these years later. I'm quoting. Julian thought to rebuild at an extravagant expense the proud temple once at Jerusalem and committed this task to Alypius of Antioch. Alypius set vigorously to work and was seconded by a governor of the province. When fearful balls of fire breaking out near the foundations of the building continued their attacks till the workmen, after repeated scorchings, could approach no more, and he gave up the attempt. By the way, just a few months later, Emperor Julian the Apostate, was killed. You know what he was killed doing? Invading Iran. Literally invading Iran in 363. Yeah, he was killed doing that. So it was during his invasion of Iran that he decided to rebuild the temple. You can't make this up. And we're not making up. It's real. And by the way, there was an earthquake at the same time. There are many accounts of what happened when they tried to rebuild it. And all of them describe the earth rending and flames coming out. And it all sounds kind of spooky and supernatural. Like it's just too perfect, right? Jesus tears down the temple and begins this new relationship with God directly through him. No need for a building anymore in Jerusalem, a city he went out of his way not to spend the night in, walk over to the Mount of Olives, even after the Last Supper, but whatever. And there's this one attempt by a guy who hates Christianity to rebuild the third temple. And by the way, the workmen get burned by fire from the ground at an earthquake. And you can sort of laugh at that if you're a rationalist, a materialist, a modern man, until archaeologists discovered that actually there was a big earthquake in the region, from Galilee to Jerusalem in 363. So that actually happened. In any case, why the long history lesson? Because it's not history anymore. It's happening right now. There are key players involved in this war, the one happening tonight, who believe that what we're seeing on our television screens and on Twitter will usher in a series of events that begin with the destruction of the Dome on the Rock, Aqsa Mosque, and then the rebuilding of the third temple, after which the world will end. God will come back. And they mean it.
So yeah, this, according to prophecy, will signify the apocalypse, or the second coming of Christ. Now, I know I have a lot of biblical scholars that, might be watching. I'm going to do my best. This is research that I've done and things I've heard over the years. Oops. Like what exists now, like what that is. But the only part that is remaining of the original Solomon's temple is the Wailing Wall. And this is a recent picture of it. So I'm going to share a little of my personal insight when I'm looking at this structure. Now, I'll just really quickly explain why it's so hard to believe that they will destroy the dome and rebuild the temple, because this is one of the holiest sites to Christians and the followers of Islam. It's the spot where Abraham walked to sacrifice Isaac. It's where Jesus was crucified, and the spot of his resting and resurrection is nearby. So if they were to destroy this area, they would piss off billions and billions of people, all, Christianity, followers of Islam. There are many more Christians and Muslims than there are of Jews. And so the thought of destroying those holy sites to build this one holy site just seems like a very bad idea. But as time goes on, it seems like this is really the plan going forward. And I'm going to show a little, I'll give a little insight. Now, this is my own observation. This is my theory on what we have here. You can see a lot of different pictures and videos of the wall. This is the Wailing Wall. So I also have been obsessed with megalithic structures for years, at least 5 years. I mean, I've always been interested in ancient architecture and art history, but I do study I've been just obsessed with ancient architecture. So what I see here is the bottom part. To me, this looks megalithic. And the top part where you see those smaller bricks, that doesn't look megalithic. And what I mean by megalithic, I mean ancient, what do we call it? Technology used by ancient civilizations to build structures that, for today's standards, is impossible. One example in Peru, Sacsayhuaman, these stones they're massive. A modern day mason cannot figure out how ancient people built this. First of all, to bring these stones to quarry them, to make them seems, close to impossible. And then to fit them perfectly like a puzzle, like they just fit perfectly. Supposedly you can't put like a piece of paper between these stones. Here's another one, Sacsayhuaman. And another really well-known site is Machu Picchu. And this is, I think, 13,000 feet elevation. Here's a bird's eye view. But if you look closely, you'll notice the bottom is megalithic. This is not the best example, but it does show how the recent builders, the Incas, did the top part. And the top part is made of, smaller stones with mortar. And you can see the craftsmanship is different from the bottom and the top. Another example, this is also in Machu Picchu. So if just look how huge this one stone is and how hard it would have been to make this stone and to fit it with everything else and get it to this elevation. The technology required, a lot of people don't fully understand it. I'm going to give a little insight as to what I think happened and how these things were built. But I wanted to bring it up because it kind of reminds me of this. Now, if we think about King Solomon being the original architect or original builder of King Solomon's temple, and if this is the remaining wall, that is suggesting that he was in possession of this ancient technology. Eli Marzulli calls it Gilga. He uses the site Gilga Raphaim, fallen angel technology. Those are the words that he uses to describe what was required to build megalithic structures. Here's a closer up. This is probably like 100 years old. So you can see these are very large bricks, very ancient. So there is weathering, but you can see in this shot that there was an attempt to build on top with less impressive masonry and less impressive architecture. Now, what's really interesting, I'll just point this out. If you look at these stones and the pillowing and the way these stones are shaped, to me, it looks like it was molded, like it was like a cement was poured into a mold to give it that pillowing effect. And that would explain how they shaped it so perfectly to fit together. And if we try to imagine what it would require to turn stone into dust or to soften stone, we're probably looking at a very high amount of heat given to this stone. And for me, with my research, it makes me think about the destruction we see with these fires and how stone is turned into dust. Metal is melted, or metal is also disintegrated. Metal seems to be the conduit of the energy. These aren't, the fires that I've been discussing, they're not normal combustible fires. But anyways, trying to think about how they made this did remind me of the more recent tragedies, that I've been studying. Here's one in Montana. This is certainly megalithic, but this doesn't look so much like a pillowed effect. Depending on where these structures are, they're a little different. So like each area has a style, right? It's a little different than this, but regardless, this is very impressive mason work, and the officials are still saying that these structures were made by ancient people with chisels and ropes and pulleys and things like that. But I strongly believe that there was something much more advanced and much more sophisticated involved in making these structures. I'll show a little clip on the original building of Solomon's temple. Now, I touched on this before. So there is different takes on who King Solomon was, what kind of person he was. I think the Old Testament has him like this, great leader, and in some aspects he was. But there's also a side that is very dark. And the narrative of him being able to control demons with his ring is also a very, prevalent take on who King Solomon was. And he had 700 wives and 300 concubines. He made many, many children. His descendants are probably vast, probably all over the world. But here's a little clip from Static in the Attic, and he's going to discuss this kind of darker side of King Solomon.
We had this idea cropping up in the Middle Ages, but let's rewind allegedly 2,000 years, and we have King Solomon, who is said to have had a magical ring that controlled the jinn. The temple was built by jinn. He could communicate with animals. He had a flying carpet. He made the Queen of Sheba's throne room appear in a matter of seconds from hundreds or thousands of miles away. And it's just strange that the holiest, most revered man of the OT is known outside of the OT as the father of jinn magic. And what if the holy fathers of our era are just carrying on ages old tradition? Is it possible that they have Solomon's ring and they can control the jinn?
So that's one way of looking at it. So again, going back to the wall, that would make this a product of, I guess, the demons that were summoned to build this temple. Now, I know that might sound really crazy, but we are at a time where we're seeing evidence of people in very high places practicing necromancy, or the summoning of spirits, or summoning of the jinn to do things for you. And these things that were considered crazy or just myths are starting to become more tangible. We're seeing documents of very powerful people practicing witchcraft and necromancy and doing these rituals in order to gain power and to control things. And maybe that is what has been there this whole time. When I close out, I'll touch a little bit more on this spiritual side, but I did want to touch on the beginnings of Solomon's temple. Okay. So another very interesting connection that I've made when it comes to this area where the temple is and the Holy Sepulchre. About 10 months ago, I did a video called "What is Holy Fire?" And this video I'll link it in the description, but it's based on this event where, like a certain day, people come into the sepulcher and they have this special fire that doesn't burn them. It's it's a very, if they call it holy fire. This area is supposedly where Jesus resurrected from. And I think in the last couple years, the Shroud of Turin was dated, and the Shroud of Turin is the wrap that Jesus was put in after his crucifixion. And on this cloth, you can see, his face, the thorns on the crown, wounds that were inflicted during his crucifixion. And I'll let Ale Marzulli explain what is written about his resurrection, but it also ties in to some of the other ancient, or not so ancient, but old reports of these supernatural events that took place at this very location. And this is from the video I did, the Holy Fire video. But Ale Marzulli has been talking about this for decades. Okay, you can see that? Is that okay, Shane? Okay.
Yep.
Discuss the holy fire and what he thinks it is.
And the holy fire would appear on the slab where Jesus lay. And it undulates. It's this bluish white flame. Okay, so all you skeptics out there, let's walk through this. Moses in the burning bush, that doesn't burn? What's that? You tell me. The pillar of flame that leads the Israelites through the desert, what's that? What about the tongues of fire appearing over the apostles' heads? What's that? Right? And we don't know. What if it's cold plasma?
Okay, so that was really interesting when I heard him say that. And maybe it is, maybe it's not. Maybe that is what allowed for the resurrection. Maybe that was somehow involved with the earthquake that prevented the building of the third temple. I know in the biblical text, there's examples of this fire that behaves in very strange ways. It doesn't behave like a normal fire. And I'll give just a little synopsis of what cold plasma is. Okay, cold plasma, non-thermal plasma, is an ionized gas generated at room temperature by applying high voltage electric fields, typically using gases like helium or argon. Unlike hot plasma, or like lightning, it is safe to touch, making it ideal for medical sterilization, skin rejuvenation, and surface modification of heat-sensitive materials. So it's charged air particles, but when the charge is flowing in a current, the path it takes can be through a gas, liquid, or solids, depending on their conductivity. So, we're talking about a thing or a phenomena that has been studied scientifically and can be explained scientifically. Shane understands this better. I am learning little by little, but something I did learn and have a little bit more of an understanding of plasma and the different types of plasma is when I read A New Science of Heaven by Robert Temple. This is all based on research, scientific discoveries that are proven, pictures, and this is not theory. These are actual findings. And what has been found with plasma, so plasma makes up the majority of the universe, like 99 point something percent of the universe is plasma. Plasma is conscious and it is intelligent. So plasma has a mind of its own and maybe is subject to some kind of divine or demonic control. That's kind of where my mind is going, because there are phenomena that have been recorded, and I believe a lot of my viewers have experienced this, and I've heard a lot of people that have witnessed ball lightning. I haven't, but my father told me a story of this, and what ball lightning is a visible ball of plasma, and often it's seen as moving in a way that seems controlled, and it seems intelligent. It looks like it is doing something. It's like looking at things. I did a video on this, so I didn't want to go too much into it, but you know, what that is maybe is what we're seeing with these accounts, these historical accounts, and maybe it has something to do with what is going on right now. Because if we think about what is the supernatural, how is the supernatural affecting us today, and what kind of power does the supernatural have? I think that understanding plasma is the key to understanding the supernatural powers that we see and that we're starting to see more frequently. Okay, I'll touch a little on our Secretary of War and what he's trying to do. So if you haven't heard, the US military has been getting orders or being told that the reason for this war is religious, and it is to bring on the apocalypse, or the there's another word, I'm not using the right word. Do you know what I'm talking about, Shane? Not the apocalypse.
Armageddon.
Armageddon. Yeah, to bring on Armageddon, to usher in the second coming of Christ. Now, I don't know if, I do believe he thinks this, and I'll play a couple clips of supporting that this is a very strong belief in high places within our military, within the Pentagon, and that this building of the third temple is understood by the IDF soldiers. And here's a clip of one of them explaining the patches that they wear. So this is an IDF soldier.
They call this operation the Swords of Iron. But what are we really fighting for? We're fighting for the right of the Jewish people to exist, be Jewish, practice their religion, and be free. And one day our true leader will come and we'll be united as a whole Jewish nation, so we can rebuild the Beit HaMikdash.
So that is a patch that is on, I believe, all of their uniforms. It's a picture of the third temple. And then here's a clip of Pete Hegseth from 2019, before he became secretary. But this is what his thoughts are of the third temple.
Jennifer and I and others had a chance to go see the western wall of the Temple Mount, the western wall tunnels, so much of the old city. And as you stand there, you can't help but behold the miracle before you. And it got me thinking about another miracle that I hope all of you don't see too far away. Because 1917 was a miracle, 1948 was a miracle, 1967 was a miracle, 2017, the declaration of Jerusalem as the capital, was a miracle. And there's no reason why the miracle of the reestablishment of the temple on the Temple Mount is not possible. I don't know how it would happen. You don't know how it would happen, but I know that it could happen. That's all I know.
So as I dig, there's more and more evidence that this is a very strong possibility, and this has been in the works, has been a plan for a long time. Okay, and then here is a Rabbi, Yosef Mizrahi, and he's based in New York, but he says that if it were up to him, this is what he would do. And I'm even hearing that this is a possibility.
We don't know. Maybe one of the missiles will hit the mosque and clear the place for the third Bet HaMikdash. That could also be a miracle. If it was up to me, the last time when they shot hundreds of missiles, I would pretend that one missile came from Iran and shoot it down. Then all the Arabs will go against Iran, and it will be the end of the problems. You make them fight with each other, this bunch of lunatics. Never too late. You deal with a bunch of cowards. The Israeli leaders, they just want to pass the week.
So, so what he was explaining there with what's going on in the Middle East, I think it's not out of the question to think that that could happen. Okay, and then I'll just play this really quick clip of Lindsey Graham, Senator Graham, declaring that this is a religious war.
This is a religious war. Who wins it at the end of the day? Do the radical Islamic terrorists who want to kill all the Jews because God told them to? Who want to kill me because I'm an infidel? Who want to purify Islam, to reject moderation and make everybody a jihadist? This is a big deal. I'll deal with Section 230. So what we're facing right now is a moment of decision that will set the course of the future of the Mideast for 1,000 years.
So this seems to be the reasoning. I don't know if it's because all the other reasons fell through, and the messaging from the Pentagon, messaging from DC has been so off. I mean, everyone says this war is for something else. And I think at this point, this is all they have. They really can't justify this to the American people. And I think the last poll, it was something like 20, maybe even 15% of Americans polled support this conflict or support the war. And normally that would cause things to be different. Normally, if a war has that little support, it would not happen, or it would be stopped, or something would happen, but it doesn't seem like that's going to happen anytime soon. But the thing that I wanted to convey in this video is, not what I think is going to happen. I don't know if the third temple will be built. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. I don't know if we're going to win or lose. And I don't even know if those are really the main point. I think, if we want to prepare ourselves for what is to come, and I do feel we're looking at a very grim future. And I'm not talking about 30, 40 years. I'm talking about in the next, year or two. I think things are going to be, life for the everyday person. If you're in the Western, world, in the US or Canada, Australia, I think life is going to change drastically. And so I wanted to kind of get people on board with the idea that this conflict is not what we have been led to believe, or the world we live in is not what we've been told. Science that we've been educated with is not the full truth. And a lot of what we've been told and educated with is to hide what's going on behind the scenes. It's to hide who the real powers are. And when Professor Jang said, I don't want to say because I don't want to sound crazy, I'll say what I think he means. I think he thinks the powers that are really in control of these big decisions are not even human. They're not even people making these big decisions. They're not mortals. They're not even physical in a sense, not to what we think of as physical. I think we're dealing with non-human intelligence. I'm not going to just slap on supernatural because I think we have a better understanding of this. I think we're talking about powers that date back tens of thousands of years that have been controlling humanity for a very long time, dating all the way back to the beginning of the building of megalithic structures. I do think that technology is knowledge kept by this non-human intelligence. And I think there are different non-human intelligences. I think there are demonic and there are divine. So there are different powers. And I think that is ultimately the spiritual battle we are in. And so I have invited Professor Jang to come on a number of times and I haven't heard back, but I think that's what he means. And I'm going to kind of, I'll get to a couple of comments, or should I just, I'll play this last clip. This kind of is what helped me kind of get to this point. But my strong opinion is, we're not dealing with heads of state as the power brokers. We're not dealing with countries versus countries. These are pieces that the ultimate power use to do their bidding. And I believe this has been the way for a long time. And I think this is ultimately the power that is also deciding on these disasters that I've been discussing for years now. I'm always trying to figure out, like, who is deciding this? Who decided on this place to get burned and exactly how it's happening. I don't think it's even people. I think it's something beyond humans. And then I'll play this last clip, and then I'll get to questions and comments.
First of all, we assume nation states are the main organizing unit of the world. We also assume that the leaders of these nation states actually matter. And I think both of these assumptions are problematic. Maybe the people who control Russia, China, the United States, Israel are the same people. I mean, there is that possibility, right? So, again, I think you have to, given this war in Iran, you have to clear your mind. Okay, you have to examine your own assumptions about the world. That this is a war of resources between Iran and the United States. I don't think it is. And again, time will tell. Okay, I don't want to say too much because people will think I'm insane, but I don't think that nation states are really the powers that people think they are. There are other organizations, there are other entities that are above nation states. We saw that in the Epstein files, right? Everyone assumed that Jeffrey Epstein was this Mossad agent or CIA who was blackmailing these powerful Americans in order to garner support for Israel. But there were certain things that happened when we actually read the Epstein files that's very confusing. First of all, why are Bill Gates and Reid Hoffman, why are they going to Jeffrey Epstein begging for money? Bill Gates was the richest man in the world. Reid Hoffman is a billionaire. Why are they going to Jeffrey Epstein and begging for money, right? And then you have Elon Musk, who's, you know, very wealthy, and like he wants to party with Jeffrey Epstein. You know, he's sort of almost like, you know, bothering Jeffrey Epstein, like, hey man, I hear you for these wonderful parties. Can I join you? And then they use these code words like, you know, like pizza and grape soda. All right. So again, the Epstein files, if you just look at the Epstein files, the way you think power works, the way you think that the world is run is probably wrong. It probably is.
So that is what I think he thinks the power is. It's, you know, we might be able to identify some of these people, but they're not just people. They are, I guess, representatives of a higher power or a force that is bigger than a human. So I hope I made sense with this. I know it's a big idea and these are big statements, but I just tried to explain it as good as I can. And Shane, do you want to put up some questions or
Sure.
comments?
First thing, I just wanted to point out that we got a sticker from Laura.
Oh, thank you for the super, Laura. Oh, Neil, before I get to that, I do want to mention, please subscribe. Yeah, I've never lost the past couple months. Yeah, I've never just like lost so many subs in such a quick period of time. And we also have a membership program. So if you join, your comments will get priority, you know, in our content. And then there's 2 levels. The second level, you'll get access to our Telegram chat. So not everyone participates in it, but it is a resource that I use to get inside information and sometimes ideas for content. So yeah, and when we get to, I think we're at like 70 something. When we get to 100, we'll start making member-only content or like member-only launches. Okay.
All right. Let's see here. So we have, I'll try to get through these quick because we have a couple dozen at least. Michelle says, we may get closer, but she's not hopeful that we will ever really know. This world has gotten pretty strange and is getting stranger by the day.
Yeah, and I think it's just because we're learning more because of resources such as this, you know, the internet. We are able to get information that we wouldn't have otherwise. At the same time, though, I know I get a lot of emails from channels that are not reliable. So when you're watching a video, especially if it's a new channel and it's someone talking, really look at their speech, look at their behavior. And a lot of times you'll find that that is a bot, that's an AI bot. And the entire narrative is probably not generated by a person, it's generated by AI, which makes it very unreliable. So I did want to say that, you know, as much as we have access to, there's a lot of false information that's being thrown our way. And just because they're saying things that we want to hear, it doesn't make it true. Born again Christians are the temple of the Holy Spirit. Born again Christians.
Yeah, so this is a theme that I keep seeing come up again, is that the Holy Spirit does not reside in a building like a church or a temple, but like within each Christian who believes. So like that is the ultimate like temple or church.
Okay, and that was the big change from the temple to what Jesus said, right? Instead of having to access God through a temple, he said, access God through me and like
Right.
within yourself, right? Instead of an actual place.
Okay, and then this came up, orbs at the Temple Mount. I tried to get a little bit of clarification, but I don't know if I missed it or not. It's very curious. I would love to see more about that.
It might be, okay, orbs. Okay, I think there was a well publicized orb. It was above, I think it might have been at the pyramids though. And a lot of people got video of it. And then there was like a flash and it like went up really fast.
Mm.
I'm not sure if that's what it was. That maybe that was a Temple Mount. And it very might have been a supernatural or some kind of plasma event. But you know, in this day and age, I'm very skeptical because I understand there's technologies that can produce some of these events. So yeah, that's kind of where my mind goes, because I know it's very easy to produce content that looks like reality. They want to resurrect the London. It's Greater Izzy land. Oh, they want to resurrect Babylonia, Babylon.
Yeah, I thought this was a funny comment. It's very humorous.
Oh, Amalek. Yeah, you know, I didn't address Amalek. Do you want me to address Amalek? I do know
Depends
what
how
that's
long you want to
about.
go. It's up to you.
Okay, well, if you guys want me to explain Amalek, I will. It will probably take a good another 5 minutes to explain what Amalek is. Or if not, I could save that for the next video or the next live. But I did really look into that, and it's quite interesting.
We could probably
But
do
it
another
will.
video.
Okay. Yeah, I'm kind of approaching the 4 o'clock
Yeah.
cutoff. Okay, research the story of Asmodeus and the Shamir worm.
No, I don't know this
Asmodeus.
specific. So I've heard of Asmodeus before, but I'm not sure about the worm or how this ties together. But it is worth it to maybe take a note to look into this. There could be something to it.
Asmodeus, is that like one of the ancient prophets, or?
No, he's one of the demons. This, like, I think one of the right hand, like the right hand of Satan or something like that.
Oh, okay. Like Beelzebub and I can't think of them, but there are a couple that I heard with the Solomon's Temple. There was one, oh wait, was Asmodeus the lead of the building of the temple? I think he might have been.
I don't know.
one.
I think I've heard of him being referred to as maybe king of the demons or something, but I don't know much about it, to be honest.
Okay. And then some people have different names for the, you know, leader of the demons. Some say it's Azazel, and some say Satan. Okay, what about the pyramids in Egypt? Very mathematically designed. Yeah, so I could even go further with the building of the megalithic structures and how it relates to what we're seeing today. It's just a lot of information. But maybe, Shane, can you make a note for me to discuss that? The megaliths and how they are aligned to the cosmos and the geometry, the sacred geometry involved in them, and how I think it relates to like solar activity and the potential summoning of solar activity to make structures.
That's oddly specific, but yes.
I know it sounds crazy when I say it, but I have reasoning behind it. But I am aware that I think every megalithic structure is aligned to the cosmos in some significant way. Okay.
Okay, let's see. Where did I leave off here? We've got lots and lots of comments, so you can just pick and choose.
Okay, they have been displacing us through wars so that we don't know which bloodlines we come from. I mean, that could be a reason. I think I think it serves a lot of purposes. I think some of them are sacrifices and just the depopulation to harness more control. And there are certain wars that I've heard have tried to, I guess, hide certain bloodlines and hide the knowledge that they have. We know the death cults light in Washington's tomb to allow spirit to inhabit them. Okay, I'm not familiar with Washington's tomb, but if you look into the building of Washington, D.C., there's signs. I haven't even discussed like secret societies, but I do believe the country that I belong to has beginnings in I guess these forces, these demonic and divine intelligences. And I think there was a sort of battle with the founding of America, and not sure how exactly who won, but I know the Curse of Canaan talks about the battle of Shem and Ham and some of the people that were in charge of the founding of America, the American Revolution, and how the different sides were using the revolution to make their side more powerful. The worst thing you can do is give up your God-given right to choose for in it. You can choose not to choose. The final judgment, the illusion ceases, and you awaken from your dream. I don't have a lot of insight to give to that, but I do think we're at a point where if we don't make a significant awakening, and if the people around you are not on that journey, the next couple of years are going to be extremely confusing and extremely difficult. And I think if there are more people who are at least going on this journey and starting to realize what's going on, there might be hope for things to turn out better. Okay. Tracy, this is Stack Aloha from Northwest Ohio. Hi, Stack Stevenson. We're descendants of the people in the Bible. They want to check our blood and DNA, 23andMe, to find out where everyone is. Yeah, I'm so glad I didn't do the 23andMe. I mean, for someone like me, I know where my more recent ancestors are from, but I do think that was used as a way to track bloodlines, to find out where those bloodlines are. And my next interview, I'll be speaking to a whistleblower who was involved in these programs, these like brainwashing programs, where I think they chose people with a certain bloodline and to use them as pawns for rituals and like clandestine projects, MK Ultra type things. So yeah, that'll be probably coming up next week, but I am learning a lot about that. And it's very disturbing. But I don't want to leave on like a doom and gloom note, because I don't think we have to submit to what's going on right now. I'm really afraid that there's too much focus on the demonic. With our entertainment, music, the news, these files that came out. I just feel like we are spending a lot of time, and I'm guilty of this too. We're spending a lot of time in the dark, focusing on the dark forces where we shouldn't. I think we can't forget that we are also living in a world of the divine. And I know I have a tendency to look at the negative and the dark, but I am trying to change that mindset. Part of why I took some time off is I think I have to, kind of mentally break from looking into this stuff, because it could really bring you down, and it could make you feel very defeated, and it could make you feel like there is no hope for anything good to come. And that is exactly where the powers that be want us to be in. They want us to be in a state of negativity, doom and gloom. The world is going to come to an end. Let's just, let it happen. I don't think that has to happen. And I think, and I'm trying to do this myself, so I know it's hard, but I think we need to kind of break from that, really try to not focus too much on that. And I'll read a couple more comments. This is Israel's religious war, and they're trying to reintroduce Judaism to the world. Well, that was all abolished and Christ died on the cross. Yeah, so I'm not, I don't belong to a particular religion. I was not really given one. I was raised around different ones, Christianity, Catholicism, Buddhism, Shintoism. I'm Japanese. But I wasn't really like, I was baptized, but I wasn't really like told like this is what you should believe. But when I started my like spiritual journey, I do feel like if the teachings of Christ, and if we can use that as the way to live our lives, things would be so much better. But in my generation, we were lied to and told that the Bible is not true. These are just made up stories, and we don't even know if Jesus existed and all that stuff. Where in truth, a lot of these stories have been proven through archaeology, through science, and it's been that way for a long time. Okay. He's telling you a false flag they are planning to do. Yeah, and then, this other thing that I'm starting to see come out in the mainstream is this like fear-mongering, like, they killed Khomeini, and so they're coming after us. Maybe that's what they're trying to do. I think more likely we might see some FF events. That's one of those words that they don't want me to say. So FF. This is what I think it's been happening for a long time. But if we do see these tragedies, there's a good chance that that is what we're experiencing, or even, might even be told that that is what's happening, because with the media, it's just really hard to know what's really going on. Okay. Was there anything else, Sheen, you wanted me to get to? I know I skipped a lot.
Just real quick, I want to give a couple shout outs. One to the Peaceful Penguin. He says, make natural law understood. Again, I agree with him on that. Long story. We can probably cover that later, or I'll cover it on my own channel. And then 95%, he asked question, AI is the demiurge? I would say yes, according to Jason Brashears of Archaics. Yeah, AI is the demiurge, basically. That's another long story. And then Eric, he says, dark night of the soul. It's a process. And yes, our souls are trying to grow into a new paradigm. And we have to, I guess, bear with those growing pains as our souls grow through that process.
Yeah, really crazy times we're living in. This one last one, because I did really look into this. Shannon and I really looked into this just to, try to get things like situated. Today's man-made Israel has nothing to do with the Israel of the Bible. So yeah, like I really try to like get like solid documentation, like who are the Israelites today? And we really can't figure it out. I know, like you say, they're not the Israelis or the Jews of today, and that very well might be the case. I couldn't find out like what happened to them, because they've been enslaved, they've been moved, and we're talking about events that happened 3,000 plus years ago, or 3,000 years ago, and the disbursement of all the ancient groups. You might have Israelite blood and not even know it. And you might be Israeli and consider yourself an Israelite. You may or may not have that gene. I don't think there's any way to know. I don't think there's a test. I understand there's no actual test to find out if that is Israelite blood is still with you. But that was what my research brought me to, is that so much has happened that these bloodlines, as far as a regular person is concerned, cannot really figure out where those bloodlines led to.
Yeah, there's been so much genetic drift over the centuries, and as far as the the biblical Israel versus the modern nation state, I think Tucker had schooled Cruz on the Galatians interpretation of it actually being the covenant with the blood of Abraham, which pretty much includes all of humanity, as opposed to the modern nation state of Israel.
Yeah. Okay. So that's going to do it. So if you haven't subscribed, please do so. Like, comment, share this video so I can, get my content off the ground. And I will put something out later this week, but no live on Friday. My next live will be scheduled for next week, Monday at the same time. So with that, thank you guys for being here, and I'll see you all soon. Bye.
They piece it together.